Hello and welcome to episode number 28 of Gowing Life's Longevity Weekly with me, Chris Kerwin. Today we're going to be talking about three more fascinating topics, including the genetics of human performance, my chat with Dr. Brian Kennedy, and also should you skip your breakfast. So all that to look forward to, but first, here's the headlines in brief from this week. Demis Hassabis, the CEO of DeepMind, the Google spin-out famous for being behind the development of AlphaGo, the first computer program to defeat a professional human Go player, has recently announced the launch of Isomorphic Labs, a new company focused on utilising their advanced artificial intelligence and machine learning knowledge to reimagine the drug discovery process. This is an extremely exciting venture for everyone in the field, as we could soon see novel drugs being discovered for a range of different diseases. In other news, BioViva released the full results of their intranasal injection, which contains two types of gene therapy, human telomerase reverse transcriptase and clotho gene transfer therapy, in 6 mildly cognitively impaired individuals. The results showed that the treatment had a positive impact, slowing cognitive decline, and most importantly, demonstrated no adverse reactions. Now on to the main segments. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors used to have to hunt prey and gather food to be able to survive. At these times, natural selection used to favour the tribes that were able to chase and track their prey for extended periods of time. In other words, natural selection favoured the tribes that had greater physical endurance. Now these attributes allowed them to track their prey over vast expanses, waiting for their prey to tire and then going in for the kill, thus avoiding a dangerous fight. As a result of this, the tribes gained a regular supply of sustenance rich in fat and protein, a food source far denser in calories than they had had before. It is thought that access to this diet facilitated the expansion and optimization of the human brain, allowing those early hominid species to become the humans we recognise today. Although humans today live a far more sedentary life, anyone who has played or watched top athletes at the peak of their sport can appreciate these inborn or genetic underpinnings, which give some humans a much greater performance capacity compared to others. In a paper recently published in Nature, researchers investigated our current understanding of how our unique genetic code plays a role in our physical abilities. The team looked at several large-scale studies which explored the association of variations in the DNA of different individuals with biomarkers of physical endurance. The study also took into account the difference endurance training had on how genes interact with their environment. The genome-wide association studies, or GWAS studies, the team looked at highlighted the importance of the brain and heart in performance. It was found that most individuals with high levels of endurance shared a common mutation in the ACTN3 gene, which confers increased slow-twitch muscle fiber formation, which are more adept at sustaining endurance activities. It was also found that a mutation in the MYBPC3 gene was significantly associated with increased odds of being an elite endurance athlete. Interestingly, however, this gene is also associated with increased risk of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or thickening of the heart muscle wall, making it harder to pump blood. There have been a few famous incidents in professional sport in which this condition has caused the collapse of a player, one being the recent incident of Christian Eriksen playing for Denmark in the recent European Championships. Another interesting finding was that endurance training influences the expression of genes and the role of inflammation in our body by altering the makeup of our muscles from fast twitch fibers to slow twitch muscle fibers. So a few months ago I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down and chatting with Dr. Brian Kennedy. Now Brian is currently a Professor of Biochemistry and Physiology at the National University of Singapore, and also is a Director of the Centre of Healthy Aging. He also serves as the Co-Editor-in-Chief of Aging Cell. Now here's just a short sample of our talk. So you were president and CEO of the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, which is one of the world's leading institutes. Could you please elaborate a bit on your time you spent there and what research you did and your sort of translational agenda?
Yeah, I think that my goal in getting there was to really help the Buck and the field go beyond the basic research and try to get more translational, because I feel like that the aging research had gotten better and better over the last 2 or 3 decades, leading up to 2010 when I moved to the butt. And it was time to really see what we could do in humans. Will these interventions that slow aging in animal models work in humans? And that's been a challenge, because at the time there was very little interest from the private sector. That's changed now for good, but it was hard to get money from companies or investors. And so the field has really gone through this dramatic change. And at the Buck, we were able to start 7 different companies. One of them is Unity, which went public and is focused on senescence, and several others are still ongoing. So I think that that was one of the big drivers. And also just to try to maximize the high quality research. We had a new building open when I was at the Buck. We started a PhD program and jointly with University of Southern California. So it was really about continuing to build the great academic research that was happening there.
So thanks again to Brian for giving us the time to chat. As you can see, it was a really interesting discussion, so I'll leave a link to the full talk in the description below. And finally, breakfast is often considered the most important meal of the day, and at first glance, science seems to back this up. Multiple studies have found the association of skipping breakfast with an increased risk of serious diseases, from diabetes to cancer, leading to an increased risk of an early death. One study looked at data from over 7,000 adults, aged 40 or older. Specifically, they looked at how respondents answered the question, "How often do you eat breakfast?" They then checked the death certificate records in 2015 and compared the death rates between those who said they always ate breakfast to those who said they only ate breakfast sometimes or not at all. The results showed that those who rarely consumed breakfast were 60% more likely to die from any cause during the study period than those who ate breakfast every day. To put this into perspective, the increased risk associated with smoking 10 cigarettes per day is around 70%. The authors of the study conclude, this study provides evidence for the benefits of regular breakfast consumption in reducing the risk of all-cause and cancer mortality. Now this study, just like others before it, shows very clearly that people who skip breakfast are more likely to die. However, this is not the same as showing that skipping breakfast makes you more likely to die. In other words, these studies show correlation but not causation. This is because there may be other factors associated with those individuals who skip breakfast. And this was found to be true, with those who skip this first meal of the day more likely to be male and more likely to smoke. Now these are confounding factors, and may be the cause of the increased likelihood of dying than not eating breakfast. In order to provide evidence of causation, you need a randomized placebo-controlled trial. In practice, the placebo element would be almost impossible, as you can't really trick someone into thinking that they ate breakfast. Therefore, just a randomized trial would be more realistic, in which participants would be randomly assigned to either a breakfast eating or breakfast skipping group. Unfortunately, randomized trials are often more costly, harder to organise, and harder to recruit for than studies that simply observe the data that is already there, especially when you want to run the study for a long time. I mean, would you sign up for a trial where you might randomly be asked to skip breakfast for several years? No, I didn't think so. So consequently, most studies on breakfast consumption are not randomised. Now once these confounding factors were adjusted for, the data showed that the people who consumed breakfast every day were actually more likely to die compared to those who did not, probably in large part due to the greater average age amongst breakfast eaters. Now saying this, I wouldn't say that these types of studies are useless, as they can throw up interesting relationships which do turn out to be causal. However, I, for one, would sooner skip breakfast for a week than smoke a single cigarette, let alone 10 a day. And that is it for another episode of Gowing Life's Longevity Weekly, so I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to find out more, then I'll leave all the links in the description below. Also go and check out the Gowing Life website where you can check out all of our recent articles and news that we're posting on there. So again, really hope you've enjoyed it, and see you again next time. Goodbye.